Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with another episode with our good friend, Kipp Sorensen. Kipp is the Director of Collaboration and Content Management and also soon to be the Chief People Officer at Journey Team. In today's episode, we're going to talk about change management and the need for technological change and how to impact user adoption positively. So thanks again for round two, Kipp. We appreciate having you on again.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. This is a good subject.
Yeah, I think so too. So just at the top here, let's ask you, from your perspective, what is change management?
Yeah, I always love our terms that we use. You've been in the IT space for, remember like ITIL? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I've always struggled with these things because I'm like, all right, ITIL is like the way we should do IT. Says who, right? Like some Brits said this is the best way, and you know what I mean? Like, right. or you look at agile methodology, right? It's like, well, it's the way. Says who, right? Like so I'm gonna give you the proper definition, which is the one that just logically makes sense, and it probably won't be found in some book somewhere. How's that?
Okay. I like that. Sounds good.
So what are we talking about? Change management. And we're technology guys. We work for technology companies. There's a big difference between when you guys implement tech versus the tech actually getting adopted and used correctly, right? The investment of the software is only as good as it actually gets utilized, right? We can implement SAP, Dynamics, Teams, or whatever, but if only 20% of the workforce is using it, well, then we have poor change management, right? And so if I had to summarize kind of the steps of change management, really what we're talking about here is preparing your organization, your company for some change, right? So there's kind of some pre-changes coming. We're preparing you, right? Craft the vision and the why behind why this is even happening. It kind of goes back to our previous conversation that we had on that other episode, which was get their buy-in, treat them like adults, and tell them the bigger vision and the purpose around what we're doing so we can get behind it. Because is change easy? No. No one wants change for the sake of change. You give me a good enough reason, I'm all about it, right? So let's give our employees a proper reason. Then we implement the change effectively, right? In our case, software. And then we need to embed that change into the company's culture and practices and processes. So we continue with proper adoption. And then, of course, any good change management strategy should be reviewing that and then analyzing, saying, hey, was it effective, right? Are we succeeding at implementing said system?
Yeah, that's great advice. So tell me this, I'm sure you've seen this many times. I know I see it all the time. Companies will say, well, you know, we're out in the market, we're looking for a new solution because the last one we bought, nobody really used properly. We never got it off the ground. And so they think that buying a different system is going to fix their problem. And what do you say to them? What do you think?
Dude, here's the deal. I've been doing SharePoint implementations for the last like 20 years. I've seen companies, you mentioned the word SharePoint and you think that like you just swore, you know what I mean? Like that's a bad word. We don't say that word here. People lose their minds if you mention that piece of software. And then you go over to another system, they're like, oh, SharePoint's the best thing that ever happened to us, right? It's like, well, what's the difference?
Right.
Proper adoption, right? So now, don't get me wrong. Could we deploy the system wrong, right? And it affects our adoption, of course, right? And so it needs to go in line with how we deploy things. But man, I mean, how we consume and utilize the system and how that marries to our companies is what success is, not necessarily just the software all by itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there are times, now this is the other thing, if we don't do proper research in investigating solutions, and we buy something because it's shiny or because we like the salesperson did a great job. And we joked before this recording, and I said, you hear the term out there, or we joke about it with some softwares out there. We say, well, their software was meant to be sold, not implemented, right? And so it's like, it's that dustware or shelfware, or you hear different terms thrown around for systems that never get off the ground. Once you've properly analyzed it, this really meets our needs. What's the number one thing that you recommend companies do in order to make sure that adoption actually gets off the ground and goes up into orbit?
Yeah, I actually think it's the workforce that utilizes the software. They need to get on board. So I'll give you some insights in regards to what we typically do. It's probably different. Let's say, I'm sure it's different for different technology, right? How we roll out change management adoption on a CRM solution is going to be different than a solution that only affects finance and accounting versus the entire org. Okay. So, but I'll use what's familiar to me. Let's say we're rolling out an org wide solution that affects every employee. Okay. And how that software gets used is slightly different based upon the different departments that you work in, right? So if we look at like a CRM solution, how sales interacts with that solution is from a different persona than that of marketing or that of maybe professional services or accounting and et cetera. Okay, fair enough. One of the most effective ways. Now, let me pause for a second. Can we roll everybody into the implementation of the software and bring the whole company? No, it's not going to work that way, right? There's a lot of noise. That's huge cost, et cetera. So what do? You implement a champion program. You have subject matter experts. And we all, like anyone that's been in IT as long as I know, as long as I have been in IT, we know the right employee that I'm about to talk about. It's the employee in the department that's technically sound. They latch onto software really, really well, and they understand their business or their department's needs really well. They become your champion for that software implementation. You identify who your champions are, and you bring them in really early into the project, right? Like literally, we're kicking off this project. You've been identified as the champion. We want to get you into the initial meetings about what we're trying to address, the needs that we need to address, and then you're testing that. Is that true? Is there gaps and things that we should be aware of within the sales department that we may have overlooked by implementing this said system? They now become your department's representation. And then what happens is we bring them along with us through the project implementation. And now what happens when their department we have an evangelist, right, in that department that's like, no, this software is going to be so great, guys, man. This is going to save us time here, here, and here. I understand the backstory. I was involved in the project. I represent it. I'm bought in. My reputation's even on the line a little bit in regards to us using it. And I can marry our department needs to the software. And now they're guiding the rest of their department on how to best use that tool. And they almost become like this light tier one support as well, right? Because like one sales rep's like, oh, I'm confused, the quote stuck or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm going to contact Jake, right? Because Jake's like, he was the subject, he's our champion for the CRM solution, and he understands this like in and out, and he bam addresses everything, right? And we save that the support to the IT help desk that doesn't even understand the sales process and can't really help them anyway.
Well, yeah, and what you're talking about is the actual user level issues that users are going to encounter that may or may not be in the manual, may or may not be common to another organization, but in their application of that solution, it's a real world challenge that probably 10 of the other people are going to hit if they don't address it now. So
yeah, and it's usually it's usually like a lack of knowledge, right? Not the system has a bug or anything. It's really, I'm not sure how to do this.
It's a people problem, not a software problem, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's great. So when it's time to do that, I mean, I love how you laid out involving them early. And I would submit potentially, depending on the software, depending on your dynamic and your culture, maybe even introducing certain key people in the sales cycle, maybe even pre-purchase, so that you say, hey, we've narrowed it down to these 3 that fit within our budget and we feel good about, but we really need to help you understand and you to help us understand which of these three is going to meet your needs the best, and then have a scorecard, have a process mapped out again. So even earlier, they helped decide. They bought this because I needed them to get it, because I need those three things. So now I have to make those successful, right?
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm all about just disrupting our flow of conversation here, Mike.
That's okay.
I just thought of like the perfect analogy. You know what change management is?
What?
It's the difference between the people that buy the book and then like their life doesn't change, so they buy another book.
Okay.
Oh, still struggling. Well, I'm going to buy another book. When all they needed to do is actually implement what they learned in the first book. Wow. That's change management.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, what do you think? That was good, right?
That's really good. No, that's fantastic. Well, it's the same thing I think about with podcasts. It's like, if you're not just listening to three more podcasts on the same topic from different perspectives, aren't going to mean anything to you if you don't do. In fact, it might confuse you. Might actually be worse. You should have just listened to the one again and taken notes, right? And then have an action plan.
Yeah, totally.
Well, the key is change, right? You said change management. Well, if you're not making any changes, then what are you doing?
You're not managing nothing. Yeah.
Nope. All right. So that's great. So I love that. So we're communicating with the team. Here's the plan. Here's why. I'll even submit. We had one customer. In fact, I recorded a podcast with them earlier today. They've been a customer for about 12 years. They adopted fingerprint technology on like Verizon netbooks. This is like Palm Pilot era, pre-BlackBerry, pre-iPhone, pre-Android. Those didn't exist. They were getting fingerprint, clock in and out by their field workers, drywall in the state of Texas. And they were an early adopter. They were an innovator. And I remember when that company decided to purchase our system and to partner with us, the IT director that was making the purchase, and he shared this with us, he built, it was like a 13 slide PowerPoint that he was presenting back to the management team and to the owner that assigned him with the task to go and find a solution to fix their problem. So he shared that with us, and it was amazing because it was almost like he was reselling what he was buying back to the owner. And the last slide, he said, "Why are we doing this?" And it says, "Because Mr. So-and-so, the CEO of our company, tasked me with the assignment to go find a solution that will help us address this problem. And this is that solution." And it was like, wow, these guys have it together and they're still innovating. They're on the leading edge of technology adoption for construction and for other, even I would say ahead of other industries in how much they really buy into this stuff. So I think there's correlation there.
Totally, for sure. Another fun correlation, if you don't mind me sharing, there's a lot that we bring to the table with some of our clients, and they're like, well, what's the ideal state? And I usually say, it depends, right? Like if one company's like, hey, Kipp, we're using file servers today, right? So like us just getting files up into some cloud storage is like going to rock people's world, right? Versus another company is like, hey, we've been digital for a while. We're going down the path of records management and sensitivity labels and governance and all this other stuff. Well, they can do that, right? But so you got to understand where your user base is, and kind of back to your point earlier about like construction companies, right? It's like you kind of have to know your user base and meet them where they're at. And change management success may look different based upon your culture. I remember one of the first software implementations I did way back when. It was actually in Phoenix as well. This was before tablets. And do you remember it was Compaq had a touchscreen laptop. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had customers use them all the time.
They didn't even call them tablets because they weren't tablets. At that point, it was just like a laptop it was a weird laptop.
I think they call them netbooks, maybe netbooks or something.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember I was working for a large construction company, and we implemented these in their trucks as like, oh, we're going to revolutionize you guys, right? We're going to like bring you into the 21st century and have all this amazing stuff or whatever. And I remember I was teaching these field reps, and at one point I said like, Now click on the X in the top right or whatever. And these weren't touchscreens. You had to use a stylus, right? Remember? And a bunch of guys are like, it's not working. It's not working. I look at the table and they're all hitting the screen with their finger, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you know what? My training's not set up for you. Like I'm assuming all of this preliminary knowledge of something, and they didn't even, like. And then I remember in that training I paused and I was like, really quick, who all has a computer at home? No hands went up, right? And I'm like, okay, we're dealing with like way different than I expected, and change management for them was look differently, right? Because I understood the persona of that workforce better, of course, a little after the fact, but we pivoted and adjusted accordingly.
Yeah, and I love that you found that out by asking a good question, because if some people could get upset and tell them again, but louder, no, not that. And then, rebuke them, where again, your question figured out, oh, they don't know anything about computers potentially, or they definitely don't interact with them every day. So what about, and this kind of goes into something else I really wanted to talk about. We think of marketing as a sales tool to drive new business, to bring in revenue, to gain new customers. What's your stance on internal marketing within the company, where you're selling the adoption of a solution, you're selling the value for their role, as opposed to just the company? We're going to make more money. We're going to save more money. We're going to be more profitable so that I can sit in my ivory tower and build it taller and look down upon you all, right? As opposed to, sharing the value that it means to their position. I mean, how important is that? Have you seen it work that way? And maybe when it should have been implemented, but wasn't?
Yeah, dude, such a great question. So have you read the book Story Brand? Have you heard of it?
I have not, but I'm going to make a note of it.
Good book, especially from a marketing perspective. And in Story Brand, I'm going to paraphrase and probably slaughter it for those that have read it, but I'll attempt. So the premise is, when we market, we don't market ourselves as the superhero.
Okay.
We market that our ability to allow our client to be the superhero. Who wants to hire the superhero? Who doesn't want to be the superhero? Like, we all want to be the superhero, right? Like, I want to be Luke Skywalker, not Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And so we need to approach marketing, first of all, outside of your question, I'll get to your question, but let's celebrate the right people. So I'll give you the perfect example, because it's on my mind every single morning I go to the gym. So I go to the gym and they have these TVs up, right? And they're like, employee of the month. And I'm like, who the F is that? Like, I didn't even know who that is. The employee. Like, I come to the gym to celebrate the employee? Really? Now, you flip that sign and you go gym member of the month.
Ooh.
Kipp dropped 40 pounds, killing it. Now, do you think I'm valued a little bit more by that gym?
Interesting.
If I see that they're celebrating me and the other gym members as the heroes, and they're there supporting us in our hero's journey, big difference.
Wow.
Right? So let's align that to your question. Oh, Mike, we're implementing the company intranet. It's going to save the company so much money, blah, blah, blah. What does that have to do with me?
Right. With them.
Right? But if I switch that, and that internal marketing is like, hey, we're going to implement the system, and by doing so, Mike, I'm going to free up all this noise and wasted time that you have to deal with on a regular basis. So your best talents, that your God-given talents that you have, can be brought to bear on this solid work. And we're going to eliminate the noise and allow you to shine as an employee. Like, it's like, thank you, right? Get the noise out of my way. Let me be great. And we're here to support you in being great, not make us great. And you should hop on the train of making others great, right? Like, let's actually focus on the workforce, how they're going to benefit, and how do we have them be the superhero. And what we're implementing is to allow them to do that.
Yeah, I love that you. In fact, we have one of our first, I think it was our 6th podcast we did. That was the topic, was talking about being the superhero of the job site. And it's interesting that you bring that up. In fact, that the gentleman that I had on as the interview, we brought on just a couple months ago as our new CRO. So now he's a part of our team, and he's helping to share some of that perspective with the way that we're marketing externally as well. So it's interesting flip of things from what we would traditionally see or hear in the past, right?
Yeah. And there's so much here. Yeah, I don't know. We could go all kinds of different angles. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, no, you're good. So that's what we wanted to have, is a nice, thoughtful conversation. So we're talking about marketing internally to your people and marketing for them. What you're, we're selling efficiency. We're selling. We're going to take your burdens. We're not going to add something to your plate that you now have to adopt, and it's going to be a pain in your butt. We're going to actually get something for you that we're investing in to take 3 things off of your plate and make your life easier. And so that's just such a different message. And as an employee of a company, I'm going to feel a lot better about that new assignment to learn this new system if I feel like it really is going to benefit me in the end. And I think we're in perfect alignment with our approach to that message. So have you found instances where companies didn't deal with that messaging properly and it backfired on them and they had to pick up the pieces and try and do something different?
Yeah, totally. I mean, full transparency, and as consultants, we have our natural behavior as consultants is to solution, right? It's a common phrase where we're at that we're like, stop solutioning.
It's the same in marriage, right? When your wife I just want you to listen. I don't need you to sell it. So,
but we want a solution. And let's be honest, what do we solution with? With what we know, right? So it's like, I got a problem. Oh, let me grab the technology that I'm an expert in and find a solution constantly, right? Constantly. But we're humans. We're humans. And we're not cogs in a process in a wheel. And so if we don't see the value, if employees don't see the value of what they're doing, if they don't see the bigger picture of what they're doing, then you're going to get tissue reject. Right. I use this analogy. We talked about this actually a little bit earlier, but there's levels of commitment. There's a big difference, Mike, if I do something out of compliance, right? So if, let's say you're my boss and you say, hey, Kipp, you got to use this system, even though you hate it. I don't give a crap. Be disciplined, use X system and have discipline and do it. So I'm like, fine, you know what? You're not listening to me. I'll be compliant. What happens the first time I reach a roadblock? I knew it. System's a piece of crap. I'm out, and then I'm gonna collude. I'm gonna go around the office and complain and, oh yeah, don't you think this system's a piece of crap? And everyone's like, oh yeah, I totally agree. And I get justified, right, in regards to my ability to fight against this thing that I was never bought into in the first place, right? But if we treat employees like adults and not children, and actually allow them to see the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish, they can get behind that. And they can go, hey, you know what? The system sucks, but you know what? I understand what we're trying to do. Maybe we need to get some reps into this thing. So I'm going to step up my game. I'm going to test more. I'm going to give some good feedback because we need to address the desired outcome, right? The bigger picture, the strategic focus, not just use the system.
Yeah, it's more the why, not just the what, it's the why. And employees need to understand the why if they're going to adopt the company's vision of getting better, right?
Especially if you don't want to move past a command and control culture, you're going to have to do it, right? I stole this from Ryan Mickler, right? He used this analogy of like kids cleaning your room, right? It's like, why do you want your kids to clean the room? Do you want them to clean the room so it's clean just for the next 4 hours? Or do you want them to clean the room because you want them to appreciate the room, to take care of their things? Okay, well, the change management strategy around that is different than the change management strategy of just get your room clean or you're grounded.
Yeah, that's when you throw the stuff under the bed, right? Because it's been 4 hours.
Immediate compliance.
Yep.
Exactly. And then what do you have to do tomorrow? Command and control.
Full disclosure. So, I mean, my brothers, I learned it probably from them too. I definitely taught it to the younger ones. But literally, when my dad would say, your room better be clean before I get home, I kid you not, as soon as we heard the garage door open from the upstairs bedroom, run! And it was toss everything as fast as you can. And almost never before that moment, before he was actually in the driveway, did anything happen. Because it was exactly what you're saying. He wanted to come in and see that we had done what we were told, and that, that we were obedient way more than he really cared if our room was clean. I think that's, as an adult now looking back, that was how he was trained. That's how he trained me. I had to break that cycle and say, oh, no. We're not doing it because of that, right?
Yeah, totally. There you go. We're addressing parenting while we're on this podcast. Technology, change management, and parenting.
Well, it all applies, right? They say, I love this phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I personally think of that every day, because I'm trying to be better. There's things that I don't do as well as I'd like, or that I intentionally don't do them well. I don't put enough value on it. And then I think, I say this one all the time too. If I'm not going to care about this in 5 years, I'm not going to spend 5 minutes on it. It's like, that's it. Like, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, I'm not going to spend 5 minutes. And so try at least to prioritize. So I think we're really onto something with, again, how are we going to better manage our employees, not only their behavior and their expectations, but their contentment, their fulfillment, their happiness, right? Happy employees help build a happy company, right? Content employees help build a great company. That's how you're going to get a great company. You got to have great culture. You're going to get great culture by helping your employees be great and knowing what great looks like to you and feels like to them.
And I know someone's listening going, yeah, but Mike and Kipp, you don't understand my workforce, right? You don't understand these people, right? Like these guys are like children. I got to treat them like children or whatever, right? And that might be true. However, then I would maybe even suggest that you have the wrong employee, right? Do you want an organization by which you have to micromanage and have a command and control culture to force everyone to do their jobs, despite the fact they're adults? Or is it better to have an organization where people are self-directed and empowered to do their jobs well, and you support them?
Yeah, a very, very thoughtful question, and I think great advice for us personally, right? Aside from our organizations and our teams.
And by the way, Michael, it's I think it goes against human nature. I do it right now all the time. We do this at Journey Team all the time. We have a problem, right? I don't know. I'll make something up. I'm nervous about making something up so someone think it's like real. Okay, so let's say we have a dress code policy. Okay, so command and control is what? Well, we need to implement a dress code policy, right? We're going to write up some document. We're going to spend countless man hours fine-tuning this beautiful document that's just going to just lay the groundwork and transform our culture in such a positive way. And then we're going to enforce it on our people. They're going to be bought in, and we're never going to have a problem again with someone not following the dress policy. Really? Or you could, and here's the deal. That's the natural behavior. Like, that's my natural behavior. Oh, we got a problem. Oh, let's process the crap out of it. Let's implement policy, restriction. Or you just go talk to that employee and say, hey, can you make sure that you're dressed professionally when we're meeting with clients? Okay, awesome. Which one makes the employee feel better too? Oh, I work in this environment. I have all these policies I have to follow. If I don't follow them, someone's breathing down my throat, right? And I have so much red tape, I can't even get my job done because, some executives in another conference room, is command and controlling us and treating us like children, man, that's exhausting.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And actually, and that's something that can apply to all of us, right? It's a pretty neutral thing that I think we all have to address. And I think, my wife, she's a manager at an oral surgeon's office. And when she started this job just maybe a year and a half ago, I mean, she likes to dress professional. She likes to dress up to go to work. She wants to, I mean, she was getting outfits and things for work that aren't dental specific, but it's like she looked like a professional businesswoman going into this office every day. And over the course of time, the employees started migrating that direction. And pretty soon everybody's more aware. And pretty soon her boss is saying, the oral surgeon's like, man, I really like, how professional, you're so professional. And it was like, he just thought professional, classy, all these things would come to mind when she would walk in to work every day. Well, that affected the way that, she's treated. And that affects the level of respect that people have for her. And even patients when they come, it just, when you dress for success, like you're commanding respect it's unspoken, but you're going to get that back without having to say anything. So I think it's a great analogy in the way we show up, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, another fun conversation. I've really enjoyed it again, Kipp. Tell me this, or share with the listeners, what is, just in closing, two things. First, what would you have them take away from this conversation particularly?
I think it goes back to the pitfall that we brought up earlier, right? Where we think like, oh, that software wasn't the right software, and we're going to go, look at the grass on the other side of the fence and think, oh, well, it's just green over here. But little did we realize that there's some intentionality to make that grass green, right? So just the intentionality around how do you plan to allow your employees to get involved on the implementation of the software and focus on the benefit to them. And I would argue if it's not beneficial to them, maybe you shouldn't be implementing it, right? And so I would really challenge that. Make sure it's valuable to your team. Be intentional about a change management strategy. Make sure that they're bought into it. And if you do that, they're going to use this solution if it's beneficial and you communicate it appropriately.
Love that. Great advice and very well stated. Last thing, what's something that you are most grateful for in your personal life that helps make Kipp Sorensen who he is today?
Probably opportunities. I've gotten really present to the fact that opportunities don't exist. Like they don't exist outside of relationships, period. And we even do that as a consultant. Sometimes we'll say the client was happy. No. Bill, that human is happy. Oh, the client signed a project with us. No. Trish signed the contract with us, right? Like we have a tendency to lose our humanity in some of our interactions in the professional world. We do this too. Our workforce, wait. No, like, is it benefiting Mike and Kipp on those teams? Right? Like they're humans. They're trying to get their jobs done. And I've failed in the past to really, I've been selfish with my idea that opportunities present themselves because of me. When in reality, no. Every opportunity that I've ever gotten, it was because someone believed in me or I had a relationship with someone. And sometimes they saw something that I didn't see. Or maybe they did see something through my hard work, but nonetheless, that opportunity existed because of another human. And so something that I'm just really present for of late is just grateful for the relationships that I have and for all the people in my life that kind of at one point believed in me well enough to create opportunity for me, whether it's in my current employer, with Ryan, even you, right? This isn't possible for me to be on here unless you created it. And so I need to be more grateful for those relationships.
Well, I'm grateful for your friendship and the relationship that we have, even if it's been digital so far. We'll find an opportunity to get out together on a run or do something fun here coming up. But thanks for sharing your wisdom and being so gracious with your time. I know that our listeners will deeply appreciate it. You're going to impact lives through this and their lives that you probably weren't going to reach otherwise. So very much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, brother. We'll catch up with you again later.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.